Okay, in this video, I'm going to teach you a little bit about charcoal. So this is a charcoal pencil. It's called pencil because it's, in pencil form, but instead of graphite in the tip, it's charcoal in the tip. They come in different softnesses, 2B, 4B, 6B, just like pencils. The bigger the B number, the softer and darker the lead is. Okay? And just on a new page in your sketchbook, just take a minute and just see what it feels like to shade with charcoal. If you draw with a tip with it and you draw hard, it gives me the goosebumps. Or it could be squeaky, okay? You don't need to draw hard with it, and you don't tend to really draw with the tip with it much at all. Shading with a charcoal pencil is very similar to shading with a regular pencil. I hold the end of the pencil so I can get the side of my lead on the paper. You want to have a generally sharp point. We'll talk about sharpening in a minute. And you want to go in small motions. You can do little ovals, circles, small overlapping motions so you maintain control and get a nice even tone. Okay. Sharpening, you need to sharpen with a hand sharpener. And they can be frustrating to sharpen because they can break a lot while you're sharpening. So if you can't get it like a perfect tip, that's fine. It just needs to be sharp-ish. Okay, you just don't want it all the way down to the wood. Okay. All right. And pressure is also important. So if you want something darker, you can press harder. If you want it lighter, you can press lighter. And you can also do that through layers. Okay. Now let's talk about the next tool. This is, it can be called a few different things. A blending stump, a tortillon, or a tortillon. I've looked up both spellings and they're both right. So, and what this does is it's awesome. It just blends your charcoal, kind of smears it basically. And you definitely don't need to press hard with these. I can't tell you how lightly I'm pressing with this. Just light ovals. And the great thing, this is my favorite thing about this tool. So yes, you can blend where your charcoal already is, right? I'm kind of creating a transition here from dark to light. But once your tortillon has charcoal on it, it can become a drawing tool in itself, and I'm going to use it to drag it into the paper and get my lighter values. So when you're trying to create a smooth transition into the paper, your tortillon becomes invaluable. Look at that. Okay, so take a minute, if you can pause the video if you want, and practice creating a little transition in your sketchbook. Okay, so hopefully you had a minute to practice with charcoal. Now we're going to do a fun little activity, which is shading water droplets. And for this activity, you need toned paper. What toned paper is it's just paper that's not white, okay? And it's generally kind of a brown or a gray, not too dark, not too light, just kind of a middle tone. The reason we want to use toned paper is because eventually we're going to be using white charcoal to create our highlights. And white charcoal obviously isn't going to show up on white paper. So, all right, step one is to sketch out your water droplets. Now, if your toned paper is kind of small, then you do not have to do it the same size. In fact, it's kind of hard to shade things small. So I would say draw your water droplets a little bit bigger. I've only fit 3 on this paper so far. I can always add more later if I get done with those, okay? You do not want to draw hard with pencil because charcoal doesn't really like to go on top of the graphite if it's been done hard and kind of shiny. The charcoal just kind of reacts weird to it. So, okay, now we're going to talk about hard and soft edges. This is super important. Okay, sorry if this pencil is tripping you out. This is from the internet picture that I got, so ignore that, okay? Hard and soft edges are super important, and that's really, you'd think that drawing water would be hard. It's really not, as long as you keep your hard edges hard and your soft edges soft. So, most students can kind of figure out what a soft edge is. A soft edge is where, see this darkness right here? How it fades into the paper. It kind of slowly and softly fades away, okay? A hard edge or a crisp edge is when there's a clear distinction between the edge and what's next to it, okay? So we want to create a hard edge and then a soft edge, okay? All right, so I have, I have lightly outlined my water droplets. Now I'm going to draw out my hard edge, This does not mean I'm outlining every water droplet with my charcoal pencil. Absolutely not. Because over here you can see there's not a black line, it's a white line, okay? So we're gonna hold off on that. But I am gonna outline it where I want some dark and a hard edge, okay? Then I'm gonna create my soft edge by just shading a little bit of charcoal along the edge. You'll find a little bit goes a long way. You don't need nearly as much as you think. Then I'm gonna take my Tortillon and blend my soft edge. So I am going right up to the edge there. And then, like I showed you on the sketchbook paper, once you have charcoal on your Tortillon, you can blend it into the paper. And that really does all the work for me. So unlike pencil, where you have to do all the work of shading and blending with layers, really all you have to do is put down a little charcoal and then your Tortillon will do the work for you. As long as you're pressing very, very softly and gently to drag that out. Okay, so I've created my soft edge. Now I'm going to do the shadow over here as well. So I'm going to outline to create my hard edge. I'm going to add a little bit of charcoal. And then I'm going to use my Tortillon to blend that out. Okay, so I would recommend taking a minute, pause the video, start drawing your water droplets and shading them just with your dark charcoal pencil and your Tortillon. Do that step on all of your water droplets. Okay, so hopefully you've done the first step with all of your water droplets. You've created your hard edges and your soft edges, both in your water droplet and their shadow, okay? The next step is to erase. Now, since we're shading something small, it's going to be nice to have something like a brand new eraser with a nice crisp point, or maybe you have a pencil eraser with a point on it. The kneaded erasers, they just don't erase the charcoal well enough to work, okay? They work a little bit to soften things, but not really to erase anything. So now we want to erase any highlights that we may have just shaded underneath, like this one right here. I feel like that one right there isn't covered up by the shading. Some of these shadows have a little bit of reflected light in them as well. So I'm going to erase that. So go ahead and pause the video and erase your highlights. Okay, now that my highlights have been erased, now I'm going to use the white charcoal to add highlights. So I want to do these bright highlights right here. You can press hard, but if you hear squeaking, then you're probably pressing too hard. And right here. Okay. Somewhere right here, I might not have to press so hard. Just kind of a soft layer. Okay. And then we want to do our hard and our soft edge right here. I find it's easier to always go against my hard edge, have it outside of where I'm going, so I'm going to flip my paper so I can be really careful to create my hard edge right here. Now, one thing about the black and white charcoal, you do not want them to mix, okay? I'll show you a bad example where they mix. They just create kind of a nasty gray that doesn't look great. So you don't really want them to touch. Toned paper drawing involves leaving the actual tone of the paper to be your medium values, okay? So if you think about a value scale, your white is the top half of the value scale, your gray paper is the middle part of the value scale, and your black is your lower end of the value scale. There is no reason that your white and your black are actually going to need to overlap, overlap at all, okay? All right, so now I can create my soft edge. And creating soft edge with your white charcoal is actually a lot easier than the black charcoal because it just doesn't lay down as much. It's easier to have a lighter touch. Okay, and then if you want to use a tortillon, you can, but it needs to be very clean. I always save one for my black charcoal and one for my white charcoal, so I keep the white one clean, okay? And again, it's just a very light touch, circular motions. One thing about the tortillon is it does kind of blend the white away. So if you want it to be really white, you don't need to use the tortillon. I don't need to use it right there and there. If I want something to appear brighter, I might have to do another layer where I press a little bit harder. Okay, at that point, I would just kind of sit back, critique my drawing. This area right here where these two things are meeting are kind of looking wonky. We kind of want to work on that area a little bit more. I don't need this pencil line over here because you can see where it's just a white outline at that point. If I want these highlights to look super glowy, I call it glowy. So I have the middle part where I pressed hard, and then on the outer part I just add a little bit of a soft edge. You get kind of a glowy highlight is what I call it. And there you have it.